Self Admonition by Leo Tolstoy, written in 1908. I am always in search of true understanding, answers about life, what I should and should not do according to that understanding. I am aware that my real life is not in my body, but in the original spirit that is separate from everything, which I call the soul. I also recognize that this spiritual essence is not just within me, but also within all other living things. This spiritual essence, divided by the bodies of living beings, and I refer to the infinite consciousness that encompasses all as God. The original spirit within me, as well as in every living being and in itself, that is, in God, always yearns for integration with what it is isolated from. This integration is accomplished through what we call love. I see in this integration the highest bliss for myself and therefore fervently turn towards everything that increases love within me and avoid all that reduces and weakens it. What lessens and weakens my love for others and for God is the misguided perception that the purpose of my life lies only in my personal well-being. This delusion gives birth to misdeeds, sins that prevent the integration of my soul with the souls of others and with God. The most common sin is the indulgence of the flesh. I fear it and wish to struggle against it, to escape it, not to overeat, not to possess excess clothing, utensils, houses, not to pamper the body, not to satisfy its needs, so that I can fulfill the demands of the soul. Another sin tied to indulging the flesh is the sin of bodily idleness and enjoying the labor of others, forcing them to do for me what they do not have time to do for themselves. The third sin, as dangerous as the first two, is the sin of lust, which destroys love and respect for human beings, who are spiritual beings like me, and leads me to see in the opposite sex only an object of sexual desire. And the fourth sin is malice, anger, vengeance, and hatred of others. This sin is more heinous than all others because it directly opposes the love of all people, which is the only thing that can bond person to person and to God. I fear sin, and even more so the temptations that justify it, the greatest and most dangerous of which is the arrogant belief that I am something special, thinking that I am an exceptional person, entitled to the best food, the best clothes, the best comforts, and that others should work for me. As a special person, I can't be satisfied with the family life, a faithful spouse, and I cannot refrain from punishing those who offend me, a special person. The temptation of pride is terrifying and harmful in individuals, but even more so in collective entities such as families, classes, and nations. Therefore, I do not recognize any differences between people, and there can be no special privileges or rights of one over another. Likewise, there can be no privileges of one nation over another, because what gives life to me and to everyone is one, in me and in everyone. The temptation of pride leads to the consequence of living life for fame, bending to the opinions of others, and seeking glory in public opinion, which is more harmful to the human soul than anything else. I know that my life is in the union of love of the spiritual being in me with other beings, and with God, therefore the world's opinion of me cannot be my life's purpose. My efforts to unite my soul with other beings, and with God, are mostly contrary to the opinions of the world. The danger of not doing what our conscience wants, even what the animal within us demands, but doing what the thoughtless crowd requires, leads to absurd desires, worldly titles, and the insane desire to accumulate and hoard wealth, which is not only unnecessary but also prevents a reasonable life. Believing in God living within me, in all people, and all creatures, I know that His demands are simple, clear, understandable to everyone, and therefore do not require blind faith, unfounded indoctrinated doctrines, and their complex, confusing explanations. Hence, I regard all these doctrines as superstitions and dismiss them. I see as superstition the complex, conflicting doctrines believed by the world without proof, claim to be the laws of God. I consider these harmful and dangerous to the human soul and strive to free myself from them. Similarly, I regard as superstition the complex, conflicting theories about the illusory laws of the physical world, also believed without proof and claimed as science, necessary for human life. I find these theories harmful to the capacity to receive true knowledge and strive to be free from them. I also consider the doctrines about the illusory laws of social life, which are created to excuse the violence of some people against others, as always harmful to the life of the soul. Therefore, I do not acknowledge them and do not adhere to the requirements that stem from them. My life is a step-by-step liberation of the soul from the body, which isolates it from other souls and from the origin of all, God. I am aware of this and thus strive to resist the sins, temptations, and superstitions that impede this liberation. I undertake efforts to free myself, starting with my thoughts. These efforts are focused on dispelling malevolent thoughts, sinful temptations, and superstitions, and trying to align my thoughts with those of the most virtuous and holy people in the world. I keep these thoughts in mind to fight against the sins, temptations, and superstitions that hinder the expression of love, which is the key to life and my happiness. I recognize that the main obstacle to achieving the happiness of love is the attachment within me to my individual self and serving it with the false belief that my life resides in my individuality. Therefore, I do not acknowledge my individual self as me, but only as an obstacle to the liberation of the original spirit that it obscures. I make efforts not to sustain my individual self, but instead to deny it, to suppress its demands. I know that the cause of all temptation is pride, and so I try to remember that the truly great original spirit within me is not mine but common, of God. The non-spiritual part of me, the individual body, is my enemy, which I can conquer only when I renounce the physical individuality that obscures the original spirit. I am aware that the doctrines believed without proof about the fictitious laws of God, as well as the so-called scientific theories about the illusory laws of matter and similar illusory laws of social life, which justify the power of some people over others, are dangerous superstitions that harm the liberation of the human soul. Therefore, I do not believe in them, nor do I comply with them. To avoid their influence, whenever I have to interact with them, I focus on the only true way of living, freeing the soul from the body through love. The efforts of my thinking reveal to me the sins, temptations, and superstitions, showing what I should not do. Therefore, even if I cannot know exactly what I should do in every given situation, I can always know what I should not do, and I strive to avoid sinful, tempting, and malicious behaviors that my reasoning has uncovered. I am mindful that among the behaviors I can avoid, there is one often deemed insignificant, yet it has one of the greatest impacts on human life: speech. I try always to remember this and pay attention to my words. I understand that real life lies in the effort to liberate the I within me from the sins of the flesh, and I know this effort must manifest only in the present. Therefore, I strive not to dwell on the past or future, but focus all my energy on the current effort to free the soul from the body. I know that for true spiritual life, there can be no death. Death only exists for those who see their life in what is not truly alive, the body, and it is ended by death. I will try to live a life without thinking of death. I realize that my happiness lies in freeing more and more the original spirit within me from all that physically overwhelms it. The more I strive for this liberation, the more joy and peace I feel each time. I do not fear suffering, for I know that all suffering, to the extent that I feel it, illness, deprivation, offense, and humiliation, are merely indicators of the efforts I need to make to achieve the true happiness that is meant for me.